Shivaya, Shivaya Namaha. Om Namah Shivaya, Shivaya Namaha.
திருவாதிரை தீனமன்று திருவாதிரை தீனமன்று திருரஸ்தலம் காமன் கனிவான முகம் கூர்ந்து எழில் ராஜன் சிவகாமன் கனிவான முகம் கூர்ந்து திருப்பாதம் தன்னை தூக்கி முதலான நடமாடும் திருப்பாதம் தன்னை தூக்கி முதலான நடமாடும் திருவாதிரை கதிரை
Sri Matre Namaha. Namaskaram, everyone. Welcome back to our Sacred Rites and Rituals of Sanatana Dharma Learning Series, which is a joint presentation by the Sri Vidya Temple Society, Rochester, New York, USA, and Ashtanga Yoga Mandir of Sri Lanka. These lectures are conducted by Sri Chaitanyananda, affectionately known as Ayya. Ayya is the founder and Pidabadi of Sri Vidya Temple. Both Ayya and Amma, Srimati Yanamba, have dedicated their lives to the noble mission of preserving and spreading the knowledge of Devi worship and the rich tradition of Saivai Bhakti, as well as ensuring learning of these rich traditions is accessible to all individuals regardless of caste, creed, or gender. Through this learning series, Ayya continues to share wealth of knowledge and his continuous dream of making learning accessible to all individuals. Currently, the temple is celebrating Kedara Gauri Vidiram. The puja commences at 6 p.m. every day. Please join us for the final celebration of the Kedara Gauri on Wednesday, November the 3rd at 6 p.m. Also, just a friendly reminder that the Skanda Sasti Vidiram will also start on November 5th at 6 p.m. We kindly ask all visitors to register before visiting the temple and adhere to all COVID-19 procedures and protocols. A few housekeeping reminders. Before we begin today's session, please use the question form to share any questions you might have pertaining to the content discussed. For those viewing our live stream, our question form can also be found on our webpage, which is srividya.org/aym-lectures. At this time, we will hand it over to Ayya.
Hamsasivassoham hamsaha hasakafrem hasakshamaravaryom hasau sahakshamaravaryem sahau swarupanirupanahetave swarurave Sri Annapurnambika Sameda Sri Lasri Amrutanandanada Saraswati Mahabhattaraka Sri Guru Sri Padukam Pujayami Tarpayami Namaha. Namaskaram. My humble pranams to my esteemed Guruji. I prostrate before him and pray to him that he sit on my open heart lotus and speak through me. We have so far looked at the Yagna Shala that is erected for the Brahmotsavam festival that is conducted during Saran Navaratri or Sarada Navaratri. We went through the process of going around the Yagna Mandapa, which, if you recall, has been equated to a Sri Yantram, and the Chaturashram is visible. And typically in the Chaturashram, there are 4 entrances in the 4 cardinal directions of the compass, and each direction pertains to a particular Veda. Like in the east, it is Rig Veda, south is Yajur Veda, west is Sama Veda, and north is Atharvana Veda. We also saw that the entrances are guarded by deities. In the east is Mahapratyangara, in the south is Sulini, in the west is Sudarshana and Sudarshana Narasimha, and on the north it's Sarabeshwara. So the last we spoke of, I pointed out to the small kalasas that are placed approximately a third of the height, at the third of the height of the Yagna Mandapam. And the Dwara Puja is conducted so that we have permission from the Devatas that protect the entrances and the Vedas to go inside. What you see here, the photograph is that of one of the small kalasas that is approximately a third of the way from the base, from the ground. And you see two of them there. And this happens to be the Purva Dwaram, eastern entrance. So once we have worshipped the entrances, it is also important to note that at each entrance, there is a Nandi and a Balipidam. This Nandi, various lineages have different explanations for it. The Nandi is placed there in the entrances to prevent the energy from the homam and from the worship of the Dasamahavidyas that are inside, and the Nityakala Devis and the Shodasa Lakshmis from leaking out, for want of a better word. They will otherwise disperse. So the Nandis are placed there, and entrance to the Yagna Mandapam is possible after the worship of the deities that are on the external side, which include the directional deities, the Chaturayadana deities in the four corners of the Sri Yantram, and the Nakshatra deities that are placed in the form of 27 kalasas. And once this has been completed, entrance into the Yagna Mandapam can be, the tradition is, whichever lineage to which you belong. If you belong to Rigvedam, then you use the eastern entrance. If you are Yajurvedis, then you use the southern entrance. But in our temple, the western and the northern entrances are closed, simply because we have made an adjustment in the Vedikai, and the Vedikai consists in our case of 3 kalasams. The base kalasam containing Amritam, Kalasamritam. The center kalasam containing Akshatas, and the top kalasam containing honey, pertaining to the 3 kutas of the Panchasakshari. The Devi may be standing, as you can see in the photographs here of previous years. The kalasams are actually dressed up to be like the Devi. So you know that the mother that you see standing there actually is made up of 3 kalasams. And also, the adjustment we have made in the Vedika is that from Bhuhu, Bhuvaha, Suvaha, Mahaha, Janaha, Tapaha, Satyam, the 7 Vyahritis of the Gayatri are reflected here. On the right-hand side, you will see the first photograph. In the base, there are grains. Now, this is what you see is this year's Kalasam, the Vedika Kalasam. She is actually seated with her left foot down and her right foot folded. And you see the Vyahritis of the Gayatris, like in previous years, represented. Now, I have, after completion of the external puja, I have now entered the Yagna Mandapam. And the first one, the Vedikai and the Yagna Mandapam are this year connected to Ganesha, Graha, Nakshatra, Yoginim, Rasi Rubinim, Devim, Naumim, Mantramayim, Matruka, Peter Rubinim. So the nakshatrams are outside, Ganeshas are outside, Ganesha Graha Nakshatra Yoginim. The nakshatras are outside. And the Navagrahams you will see in the form of golden statues in front of her. So the first order of business is for me to worship them. You can use elaborate puja vidhanams for the Navagraham. It will delay the process of worshipping the kalasams that are inside. And the Navagraha kalasams, the Navagraha murtis are worshipped either with their gayatris or a salutation that is for them. For instance, if you salute Surya, who is in the center of that assemblage there, Surya is facing east. So you say, Grihamandala Madhye Purvabhimukhaja Adi Devata Pratyadi Devata Patini Putra Parivara Ayuda Vahana Dhanya Mandala Ratna Samedam Surya Graham Avahayami Styajami Sampujayami Namaha. So like this for each of the planets, if you close your eyes and listen to what is being said, you know which direction each one is facing. And you will understand the puja. It's not an elaborate puja, it is a Anga puja. Or you can even say Upanga puja. It means that the Navagrahams are not given that much of an importance. Now, if you look at this arrangement in the Yagna Mandapa, you see the Navagraha Kalasams, the Navagraha Murtis, and on the northern side of the Mandapam, the first yellow dot that you see there is where a Devi, usually it is the Vanadurga Devi that is there in the temple, that was presented to the temple by no less a personality than the avatar of Akhilandeshwari. The Vanadurga Devi was in her temple for 15 years and she very kindly donated it to us so that we could worship her. She is overseeing the Yagnam and she is overseeing all the homas and all the Kalasa Pujas that are being performed inside the Yagna Mandapa. So that is her. And every day she is also given Panja Upachara Puja and Naivedyam 3 times a day. Now, if we can go back to the previous slide, at the northern entrance, mainly the importance is now given to Nityakala Devis. The blue dots that you see inside, they are the Nityakala Devis. If we can go back to a plan of the Yagna Mandapam without the photograph of the Navagraham, we will be able to see it. The description is, they are the Nityakala Devis, and the description says, Devyaha Purvatalam Arapya. Purvam is east. So the petal in front of the Devi, which is the eastern portal, eastern entrance, Purvatalam Arapya. You remember in the Sri Yantram, the Nityakala Devis are in the 16 petal lotus outside. And the puja says, Purvatalam Arapya Vama Vartena, anti-clockwise direction. Very recently, I came across a website where somebody is teaching the Sri Chakra Puja, the basic Sri Chakra Puja, and they have placed the Nityakala Devis in the clockwise direction. So maybe there is a sampradayam where you can see the Nityakala Devis in a clockwise direction. I myself have personally come across a temple, a Mahameru temple, that is on the way to Kanchipuram, close to a place called Padappai. It was constructed there by the late Swami T. Murugabhushanam, who happened to, he is the one who has made our Meru, that is in the temple, and Prana Shakti, that is in the temple, and the Chaturayadana Murtis that are around the Sri Yantra. In his temple too, the center belongs to a Mahameru that is 3.5 feet tall and is decorated profusely, and the Nityakala Devis are in a clockwise direction. So perhaps there is a sampradayam like that. But ours, the way it was taught to me, is anti-clockwise. So on the eastern entrance, if you are facing it, it will be to your right inside. The first red dot, next to it is a blue dot. That is the first one, Kameshwari, going anti-clockwise. Kameshwari, Bhagamalini, Nityaklina, Verunda, Vahinivasani, and so on and so forth. And it ends in the south, in the southeastern quadrant there. The last blue dot becomes the Nityakala Devi. Now, what is interesting here is several years ago, maybe in the early 2000s, we produced a Navaratri Malar that worshipped some forms of Durga. And I found an interesting sloka that goes, what is the syllable, what is the aksharam? Akara prakritika. So that means in the body you can relate it to the Visuddhi Chakram, all the vowel sounds are there. And it maps Nityakala Devi and Shodasa Lakshmis and the vowel sounds. And it's an interesting sloka, so we published this somewhere in the 2000s, and this year that document came in handy. It came in at the very correct time, because some of the upasakas here are performing Shodasa Lakshmi pujas daily so that the temple can be built faster. We took some of the information from them, and each of the Nityakala Devis was installed by 2 upasakas who were with me throughout Navaratri, throughout the Navaratri time, festival time, working inside the Yagna Mandapam. Usually in temples, the Yagna Mandapam is off limits to everybody else except the pujaris. Nobody can go inside. And they place them in different places. And around where you see our Homakundam, you will see around 9 shapes of the Homakundam. Different shapes of Homakundams are there, and different pujas are done. Rudragni, Karhabhaktini, Karhagni, like that. There are different names for this. In our case, the central Homakundam is it. And the Chaduram is beneficial to everyone, all of them. The other shapes are job specific. If you perform the Homakundam, the homams in those Homakundams of different shapes, they are specifically for particular purposes. So this one will benefit all the devotees. That is why we chose this one. Now, the Nityakala Devis, each of them when we chanted the mantras, a male and a female alternatively alternating, they install the deities in the kalasams. I will say that this is a unique feature for our temple. Following the footsteps of the great Amritanandanatha Saraswati, who insisted that the ladies, the females, have equal right to worship, we decided that the helpers, on alternating days, they will do alternate ones. So a gentleman and a lady would install the murtis. Now, it is important also to remember, we did not chant the Mula mantras for each of the Nityakala Devis. See, for Kameshwari, there is a Mula mantra. For Bhagavalini, there is a Mula mantra, like that. We did not do that because the Shodasa Lakshmis, the vowel sounds, and the Nityakala Devis themselves were installed in the Kalasam. This is called a Lagu Pradishta. So they were installed in there. And Pancha Upachara Puja was performed. Now you see, in an anti-clockwise direction. In many cases, people will be questioning why is Ayya and the persons who are doing puja inside the Yagna Mandapam going anti-clockwise. Inside the Yagna Mandapam on alternate days was a senior disciple of Guruji, Mrs. Srimati Sheila Chavan, also alternating male, female, male, female. So that part of it was satisfied. Now, after the Deepam was given to them, then through the south entrance, I would step outside and the two devotees who install them will provide Naivedyam for them. And the Naivedyam, one would question, how would you put a kolam, that is a rangoli, before you place? The tradition is that if you are going to give Naivedyam or anything to the deity, on the floor there must be this design, some rangoli, some kolam, so that the sanctity is maintained. And it doesn't prevent the energy from earthing. So they would come inside and they had printed rangolis on which they would keep the tray and the Naivedyam for that day. And before all of this was done, the two devotees who were in charge of the Yagna Mandapam would go in and change all the decorations, the flowers, the garlands. Everything would be carefully removed and changed so as not to disturb the kalasam. Now this happens in a temple. When they place the kalasam, it will be sometimes or most of the times it will be perfectly vertical. After a couple of days have passed for the Navaratri, if you go and see the kalasam, some of them will be tilted. That's a natural process because of the weight of the water and the unhusked rice. The rice that we place on that is rice that we can cook straight away. But back home, it will be unhusked rice, nell. And that would have given way for the weight of the water. So slowly it will settle to a side. I have noticed that in the temples, they won't touch them. Either because they are not aware of how to write the kalasams, or they are so busy that they don't notice it. It is important to make sure that the vertical nature of the kalasams is maintained. How would one do it? It's a question. When you make a correction inside that, what you do is you chant your Mula mantra with your Guru Padaka mantra and straighten it. So if there is any dosham, any shortcoming, it will go to your guru's lineage. That's what they are there for. They will guide you through this and they will take it. Now, here is another place where the intersection between the Vedic and the Vedic or the Agamic and the Sri Vidya traditions cross. So every day this minor correction would be, I would tell them, because they need to learn. Because in 10 years' time or 15 years' time, they are going to be the ones who are going to run the temple and take care of all the ceremonies. So they need to know. So if you notice, all the kalasams would have been corrected. And they will place the Naivedyam, and I will go and use the consecrated water from the Panchapatram to do the Naivedyam. Now, once this is completed and this worship to each of them is to be completed, beforehand, I would have gone into the Yagna Mandapam alone with the flowers, with one assistant carrying a tray of flowers. And can we go back to the plan of the Yagna Mandapam, please? Prior to doing the Nityakala Devis, I would have installed the 10 Dasamaha Vidyas that have been placed. Now, if you look at the plan, the north entrance where the yellow dot is, next to it on the left side, there's a red color dot, that is Kali. Now, there are no specific details, at least in the research I have done, in such a Yagna Mandapam, where Kali should be placed, where Tara should be placed. So following the tantric path that our lineage is following, Uttara Digbaham, north, Kali was entered, Kali was installed. And anti-clockwise going, the next one is Tara. And in the center dot is Mahatirupura Sundari, Shodasi. We skipped her, we skipped the installation of her until the end so that we could concentrate on the central Kalasam. The next one was Bhuvaneshwari. Then Bhairavi, Tripura Bhairavi. And Chinnamasta, Dhumavadi, Bagalamukhi, and going Matangi and Kamalatmika. They were installed. The Nityakala Devi Pujas. Now, here is another intersection of important tantric principles and agamic or Vedic principles. Every day for Navaratri, it is tradition in our temple for the public, whether they are initiated or not, whether they are Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, or Zoroastrian, no difference. Any devotee who sponsors a kalasam for that day's abhishekam to the Devi, sometimes there are 1 or 2 kalasams. Other times, there may be as much as 8 kalasams, 10 kalasams. So this year, we had, because of pandemic restrictions, the most number of kalasams were 10 or 8. Now, they will be, if they are not initiated, and 90% of the time, the devotees who come and sponsor such kalasams have no knowledge of the puja vidhi or what is going on. So some senior devotee from the temple who is familiar with the pujas, who obviously are initiated to at least Panchasakshari or beyond, will sit with them and perform the puja for them for the kalasa. Now here is the intersection I was talking about. At the same time, the kalasam inside, the pradhana kalasam inside the Yagna Mandapam also is worshipped as Tirupura Sundari. And the kalasams that are outside, that are to be used for Abhishekam, are also worshipped as Mahatirupura Sundari. So at the same time, we use, in these occasions, you can use Sri Sukta Vidhanam. Suktam means immediately the word Suktam comes, you know it comes from the Vedas. So either Sri Sukta Vidhanam, the method according to Sri Suktam, Purusha Sukta Vidhanam, the method of puja according to Purusha Suktam, Rudra Sukta Vidhanam, the method of puja according to the Rudram can be performed. So at this point, after the installation of the Dasamahavidyas, installation, first of all, of Purna Gayatri Devi is performed because she is Veda Mata, she is the mother of the Vedas. And the basis on which, like I told you last time, Panchasakshari, Kadi Vidya Panchasakshari, the Vagbhava Kudam, Ka E Lahrim, comes from a Purna Gayatri, is derived from a Purna Gayatri. The second, Kamaraja Kutam, Ha Sa Ka Ha La Hrim, comes from, is derived from another Purna Gayatri. Sakala Hrim. Shakti Kutam is also derived from a Purna Gayatri. So you can see, if you chant Panchasakshari, it is like chanting Purna Gayatri 3 times. And because the main arrangement, the Kalasa arrangement behind the Devi's form is Panchasakshari, first the Purna Gayatri is installed in all the, and the Vyaharitis are installed in the globes, and the first 2 or 3, first one is installed in the bottom, where the Palika is. That becomes Bhuhu, Bhulokam. So once that is done, installation of the Purna Gayatri is done, you will notice that there is a connection between the main kalasam, which is the Devi sitting there, and the kalasas that you see on your left-hand side. There is a connection of flowers, and that connection is changed every day. And incidentally, you can see Tara on the right-hand side of if you are facing it, on your right side, she is wearing a mundamala, that means a skull garland, and she is also wearing a garland, she's wearing a headdress of skulls. That is Tara. And on the left side, you will see Bhuvaneshwari. Now, also, if you are looking at this, on the left-hand side, you will see plants growing. That is Bhulokam, earth. And that is as a result of Palika. Palika Puja is done by Swasinis who have sponsored the kalasams. Aha. And they are asked to come up and offer water tirtham to this. And within 4 or 5 days, the Navadanyams that have been placed there on the first day of Ghatasthāpanam, they would have grown to this height. Now, you will also see behind the Navagrahas, on the right-hand side photograph, behind that you will see Devi's foot. If you look carefully, you will see that the foot is resting on a lotus. Anyway, at the same time, the Sri Sukta Vidhanam is chanted, Nityakala Devi Avahanam is taking place at the same time. So with the Pradhana Puja for the main Mahatripura Sundari, all the other Nityakala Devis, Shodasa Lakshmis, Aksharas, everything is being installed at the same time. And it is a beautiful sequence. If you listen to it, it kind of catches your attention. Now, after the main kalasam has been installed, with the first verse of the Sri Suktam, we will be installing Mahatripura Sundari, and I will go round the Yagna Mandapam. Can we go back to the Yagna Mandapam, please? Where we can see the Ayudams, the weapons of the Devi. Because the Devi is the Pradhana Murti, you will find the green color dots represent her weapons. So, going north from the red dot in the center to the west entrance, the green dot is Ashwarudha. Her Moola Mantra is chanted and she is installed. Then Rajashamala, her Moola Mantra is chanted and she is installed. And Varahi, to the southeastern corner, her Moola Mantra is chanted and she is installed. Similarly, Tiraskarani Devi is also installed. Now, also, at the same time, the installation is finished. In the northeastern corner, you will see a blue dot. In our tradition, in the temple tradition in Rochester, that blue kalasam, Bhairava is installed and he stays put until the festival is over. Until the festival is over and the Yagna Mandapam, the kalasams have been dismantled, which means he will stay from day one until the end of Kulurthi. He is placed there and every day he is installed and worshipped. And on the outside of the Yagna Mandapam, in that same corner where you see the word Vishnu, a Nitya Bhairava Kalasam is installed. That means that day sponsors of the Kalasams for Abhishekam, for them, for their sake, Bhairava Kalasam is installed there. So that is also worshipped every day. Now, once the Nityakala Devis have been worshipped along with Mahatripura Sundari, see, the interesting part of it is, in the Lalita Sahasranamam, there is a line that says, Mahapatmadavi Samstha Kadamba Vanavasini Sudasagara Madhyastha Kamakshi Kamadayini. Mahapatmadavi Samstha. Padmam is lotus. There is a forest of lotuses on the last triangle, exactly on the outside. Now, perhaps many of you are familiar with the Nityakala Devi picture that is there in the temple. You will see exactly in the place where it says Mahapatmadavi Samstha. You can see photographs of the Nityakala Devis and their yantras going around the temple in an anti-clockwise fashion. These Nityakala Devis are all there in that kalasams, in those kalasams. And once they are worshipped, you will notice also something very interesting here is that, remember the Devas and the Asuras were churning the ocean of milk so that they can get a pot of Amritam? And so many things came out of that. Yagna, you know, Dhanvantari, Kamadhenu, Lakshmi, all of these things came from there. And also the poison. And there was confusion and quarreling going on between the Devas and the Asuras. And you remember the story of Rahu and Ketu, two Asuras who sat quietly and took the Amritam. And they had to be cut by Vishnu's chakram so that they will not cause any mischief. All those stories are there. All these, the Devas fought for one pot of Amritam. If you look at the Lalita Sahasranamam, it says Sudha Sagara Madhyastha. Sagaram is ocean. She is seated in the middle of an ocean of that Amritam. And if you worship her and if you Go to her. You think she won't give you a drop of that Amritam? Come on. So here, the Bhairava Kalasam also is installed, and Naivedyam is given to him with the installation, and the puja in the Yagna Mandapam is completed. All the upacharams are given. Dasamutras are presented to Mahatripura Sundari during the thing, and we have extended some of the things that have been written for the Shodasa Upachara Puja. We have extended it. Like what? After Amardam, Amrita Shavasashakang Amardam, Argyam Samarpayami. Argyam is Visashargyam. After that, we place her on Kameshwara's lap, and Amrita Shavasashakam is given, Achamanam is given, and then the Samudras are presented to her because it is a Sri Vidya Temple. Now here is another intersection between the Agamic temple and her, and this one. Now, we have come to the end of the Yagna Mandapa Puja. Questions?
Some questions about the Kalasham Ayya from last time. One question, Ayya, is does the size of the Kalasham matter? Because we've used Kalashams of different sizes for different deities. Does the size have any impact or implication?
The size will have an impact depending on what murtis you have chosen to install in the Yagna Mandapam. Now, there are 2-liter kalasams in the temple, 1.5-liter kalasams, 1-liter kalasams, half-a-liter kalasams. Depending on what murti you have chosen and how much space they are going to take inside the Yagna Mandapam, the little stands that you see there on which the kalasams in the Yagna Mandapam or outside the Yagna Mandapam are not sitting on the floor. They are sitting on a base. And inside the kalasam, inside the Yagna Mandapam, they are sitting slightly higher than the kalasams that are outside. All these you have to think. And depending on how much space it occupies, you choose the size of the kalasams. Now, if you look at this photograph here, photographs here, the main murtis are on 2-liter kalasams. The Nityakala Devis are on 1-liter kalasams. And the Dwarapalaka, the Dwara, Veda and Dwara kalasams, Dwara Devata kalasams are half-a-liter kalasams. That's all. And obviously, if you want the Devi to have the importance that she deserves, the kalasam has to be larger. And in the temple, we have a kalasam that will hold about 4 to 5 gallons of water. And it is made from mud, of course, earth, 1 gram of powdered copper, 1 gram of powdered silver, 1 gram of powdered gold, and 1 gram of powdered platinum. These things are mixed in with it. But unfortunately, with the pandemic, when the number of devotees that are permitted to come to the temple are limited, we cannot lift that kalasam. So we had to find other alternatives. So inside the Devi's form, the kalasams that are there, one of them is a 3-liter kalasam or 4-liter kalasam. It's a big one. Each of them has different dimensions. That is the only difference. And depending on the importance of the murti. Now we decided that silver kalasams should be. Now you look at this. This is one of the times before we started having the Yagna Mandapam. Now the kalasam that you see there is profusely decorated. That one is that earth kalasam that we usually use. And look at at that time, obviously we did not have the decorations for the different Vyahritis of the Gayatri, so it is just flowers going up. But it's beautiful, don't you think so? I never saw this photograph. So nice. Okay, next question.
This is also related to Kalashams, Ayya. Is there any notion of changing the Kalasha Tirtham formulation based on the deity to be installed?
Interesting question. I hope you have thought about, I think you may have thought out the chemistry behind it. Now, the 27 herbs and spices that we use for the nakshatra kalasams, for the nakshatrams in the tirtham, they obviously have chemicals in it, like everything on the earth. And cloves, cardamoms, saffron, edible camphor, kasturi turmeric, right? And rose water and perfume, all of these play a role. Now, you can imagine, if this liquid that is there is placed in a copper kalasam, the ionization process is different. If it is placed in a silver kalasam, ionization process is different. If it is placed in a gold kalasam, it is different. Unfortunately, we don't have a gold kalasam, but any one of you who is listening is open to donating a gold kalasam. We will be very grateful, right? Anyway, if it is placed in an earthenware kalasam, the chemical process is different, the ionization process is different. So you have to choose what you really. Unfortunately, my chemistry is not that great. I know a little bit of chemistry, but I haven't gone into the details of how it reacts and what the reactions are going to be like. But judging from what the lineage has used, judging from what the ancient people have used, I have tried my level best to introduce that into our temple. A good example will be the Sarpashanti ritual that takes place in the temple. Only copper kalasams are used and they are polished inside before the liquid is poured inside. So, yes, it may impact it, but we don't have all the information with us to deal with it right now. Maybe in future.
Yeah, in terms of using nell instead of rice, polished rice, can you also use unhusked rice or some other grains as well?
Traditionally, rice is the one grain that is easily available back home. So maybe that is why they use that. But you can use navadanyam. The 9 grains can be used because it is mentioned. And the way to put the navadanyams is something, in some temples and some sampradayams, they'll mix the navadanyams and put the navadanyam mixture on the. In others, they will put it in order of how the navadanyams are related. That is, each one is related to a planet. So they will put one layer of rice, then they'll place a leaf, put another layer of some vessel, some grain, and so on and so forth, and the kalasam is there placed. You can use any combination you want. Of course, there are subtle differences in the puja when you do that. When you do the puja, subtle differences in the energy that is created. So the safest one is unhusked rice or rice.
The questions on Nityakala Devis, yeah. So why are the Nityakala Devis important?
The Nityakala Devis are rays of the Devi. The mantras for the Devi are always, she's Nitya Shodashikavarana Rupaya Namaha. Shodasam is 16. They are connected to the phases of the moon. And each ray of the Devi is said to fill the Nityakala Devi of that particular day. And she gets filled one by one. And when she comes to Paurnami, she is in her full glory. That is why they are important. And they, without the most traditions, will tell you that if you want to worship Lalita Devi, you have to worship the Nityakala Devis first, so that they will allow you to cross the Mahapadmadavi and go into the triangle. So they are important.
Yeah, what does Anga Puja and Upanga Puja mean? You referred to that briefly.
Yeah, now let us take a deity like Rajamadangi. She has an Anga Devata, Lagu Shamana, Upanga Devata, Navuli. Right? Like that, for subsidiary deities, they are in order of hierarchy. Now, in the Devi, Mahatirupura Sundari is the main deity, Pradhana Devata. Anga Devatas are weapons. And they have themselves, they have Anga, Upanga, Pratyanga Devatas. So those Devatas are worshipped. So they are deities in order of importance.
So on that, Ayya, there is a question about Sampatkari. Ayya. Sampatkari also considered one of the weapons of Devi?
Sampatkari Samaruda Sindura Brajase Vida. Sampatkari, of course, is part of the Anga Upanga Devatas of the Devi's weapons. See, when you have, now, for instance, Tiraskarani is a subset of Varahi, right? Then Tiraskarani is used for various purposes. One of the main purposes for which it is used is when somebody receives a mantra, let us say in a crowd of 10 people, if you chant Tiraskarani mantra, it will block the mantra from going to the persons for whom it was not intended. So they can chant the mantra for 50,000 times or 50 lakhs times, it won't work. Tiraskarani is used for that. So Sampatkari also is like that.
I think that's all the questions for today, Ayya. We have many questions from previous classes, so maybe we should have a question-only session.
I think at the end of this next week, we should have a question and answer only session. Is there going to be a session next week? So the coming weekend is Skanda Sashti. And we will not be having a Friday series like today. Okay, so we will see you after Skanda Sashti. Namaskaram. Sri Guru Pyo Namaha.
Thank you, Aya, for a very informative session exploring the Vedicas and in specific sharing more about the Kalasas and the external setup of the Vedicay. Thank you for taking the time to answer our questions. We are very excited to learn more. As Aya mentioned, we will be celebrating Skanda Sashti Viradam next week. We will not have class. We will resume our session on November the 12th. To access all content from prior sessions, please visit srividya.org/AYM-lectures. Thank you everyone for joining us today session. At this time, we will hand it over to Vyasana from Ashtanga Yoga Mandir to begin our yoga session.
Greetings and pranams to Haranaya and all the members of the Sri Vidya Temple, and the Ashtanga Yoga Mandir members, and all those who are joining us with live. So today we will be trying to understand a technique on the breathing practice. As you know, in the Ashtanga Yoga, which is basically well explained on one side by the Patanjali in Sanskrit language. And the Ashtanga Yoga concept is well in detail also explained by Tirumala in his great work called Tirumantram in Tamil. And so in that process of Ashtanga Yoga, you have these yamas, niyamams, asanam and pranayama. And then from there it goes as pratyaharam, dharana, dhyanam and the samadhi. Basically, what are these stages? These stages are evolutionary dimensional stages. Like every effort what is taken, like if you take in our Eastern tradition, in the Sanātana Dharma, you have a normal human being to a superhuman being. How does this progressiveness comes? And that progressiveness comes is that is one of the method which is explained is Ashtanga Yoga, where a normal person becomes a superhuman person. A normal person evolves himself into a divine person. And also from the divine stage, there are various stages. Sometimes you will know that we have certain terminologies like siddhas, yogis, munis, rishis, and even in the rishi also you have different categories. In the yogis, you have different categories. All these are how it's all based on the dimensional progressiveness of an individual based on his realization of his self or his ritual or his spiritual practices. In this practice, you will see one of the most important aspect is pranayama, that which bridges the outer world to the inner world, to the outer energy to the inner energy, and also an energy that moves, escalates an individual to a present stage to a higher stage. That is why you will see in all the rituals, you will have a basic pranayama practice. And so we will do today one of such pranayama practices, which is very much familiar to all of you all. And that will be the Nadi Shuddhi practice. So basically you will see in the Nadi Shuddhi practice, when we are doing, we use a certain mudras, which is very important. So basically for the Nadi Shuddhi mudras, you will just bend the index finger, middle finger. So you are going to use this thumb, and you will use the fourth and the fifth. In some schools, you will see they will just use only this. That's also fine. But the reason for using both is that there is a certain amount of pressure, and when you combine these two, that specific pressure can be created. So when you are going to do these practices, what is important is you need to charge this. It's very important. So basically what happens, like you just do this 9 times. So you take it like this, take it like this, take it like this, up to down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So when you do this, you will have to see whether there is any pain which is coming along this way. If there is some pain which is coming, then you need to look into it. 8, 9, and then you take it up like this, because at the same time you also take care of the thumb also. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then you have the both together, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Generally, if a person is going to go into higher level of Nadi Shuddhis, that is, if they're going to take around 27 rounds of Nadi Shuddhis, then the number of practices increases. So you do 27 times. If you're going to do 9 rounds of practices, then you do 9 rounds of practices. But if you're going to do 5 rounds of practices, still you do the 9-round practice, because 9 is a basic count. And then you always, so once you do that practice, you know whether your fingers is an efficient tool for you to go ahead with that technique. Because sometimes what happens when we are doing these practices, that energy does not allow an individual to do it. Just either the hand comes down. So if the hand is coming down due to certain reasons, you can keep it like this. Like, you keep your hands like this, and then you can keep it like this, so that it becomes easier for you to do the practices. Okay. So this is a basic hand practice, just to ensure your fingers, elbows, the wrist are all in perfect order. That is the reason, to ensure the strength and the stability of these wrists, because as all of you know, this wrist produces immense of energies. There are lots of energy knots. To activate those energy knots continuously only, you will see that we even tie the holy, in temples, when you visit, they give you a holy thread. And then you will see, like, we wear the bangles. Ladies, especially, you will know they will have the bangles. Men also have sometimes the velli, the silver, they have a certain metal type of it. Reason is what? Is to activate, understand? So if these things are in the perfect, so there are specific Dharma points in these locations. And if you are able to activate that, then only the Nadi Shuddhi becomes perfect. So if the Nadi Shuddhi has to be perfect, it's not just only from here, because this is a connecting methodology. It's a connection. You wire yourself. It's not that just the finger is just only having the role of the touching role. No, it's not like that. Finger plays a vital role in the activation. So that is what you will see when I am activating my left nostril, my right brain, and when my left nostril, the right brain, and vice versa. So how do you do the breathing practices of Nadi Shuddhi? What is Nadi Shuddhi? Is basically, what is Nadi? Nadi is where the prana travels. That track is called as the Nadis. In the body, you have around 72,000 Nadis according to one scripture, which is highly accepted. At the same time, there is also another scripture which says, which is more than 350,000 Nadis. Why does this number differ? When a man's evolutionary process changes, progresses, the nadis are also expanded. Nadis are also created by the immense practice. So asanas plays a vital role in the expansion of the nadis once your asanas and the pranayama goes parallel. And then basically you will do all the activation practices which we have already explained to you. And then what happens? You will basically keep your right nostril, on your right nostril the thumb, and then you take a deep breath. When you're inhaling, you will inhale for 9 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then you close with the both nostrils, and then you exhale through the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then from the same right nostril you breathe in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then breathe out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this becomes as the one round of Nadi Shuddhi. Sometimes if we are in a very early stages, like all those people, those who are into the Sri Vidya tradition, for you it will be very easier. Those who are following the yoga tradition, it will be very easier for you. But if anyone is finding it difficult less than 9 times, then you need to do the preparatory practices so that the Nadi Shuddhi becomes effective. And what is the basic? You should be in a position to do till from between 9 to 12 and progressive for 12 counts. So 12 inhalation, 12 exhalation, 12 inhalation, 12 exhalation. But in the initial stages, even if you started with 9 count is okay. That's fine. So inhale 9, exhale 9, inhale 9, exhale 9, do 9 rounds. So you can always start with the basic 9 rounds. And once you start doing these 9 rounds, you will see, especially on the skin region, on the eye region, all these regions where there are unwanted particles, which is there in the different layers of the skins, that becomes purified. Your body is prone to absorb the prana. So sometimes we may think, I've been always doing, but what happens? We also have different cultures in our system, like, the body. Now, for example, how do you eat? Before your food, you have 20 minutes before you have some warm water, then you have your food, and then after that you have 20 minutes after you have to have your food. But what happens? In between, we will have some food and water. Sometimes in between, like when you go for dining, and then you may take some sort of beverages. Then what happens? There is a solid versus a liquid. When there is a solid versus liquid mix, body changes. It does not allow the prana to absorb easily. Your mind aspects, you may have something which is completely troubling you, worrying you, unsettled concerns. Some people may have some anxieties. So all these times the body changes. So for that, to ensure, that is the reason why you will see in any of the traditions, when you sit for a puja, when you sit for a meditation, that what you will do, you will take a deep breath, you will do the Nadi Shuddhi, focus in that. So Nadi Shuddhi is one of the primary practices, and if you are able to go ahead till 27 rounds, that will create a wonderful impact within yourself. With those things, thank you very much, and we will see you not next week, following week in this wonderful session. I may pranams and Vanakkam to Haranaya and all the devotees of the Sri Vidya Temple, Ashtanga Yoga Mandir, and all those who are viewing this show while live. Thank you. We'll complete the sessions with the Shanti. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.